The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
Hey, all right, we made it to episode number 2. Number 2! A landmark that has no significance. None whatsoever. Means nothing. Means I didn't get hit by a car in the past 2 weeks since the show premiered. So that's always a step forward. Remaining alive. Man, that first intro was really just rambling on and on. I think I must have said, let us know what you think, like 347 fucking times. I'm sorry about that. It's those damn allergies. I'm going to continue blaming those. And, of course, the cheap red wine doesn't help either. Anyway, we're here. So, water under the bridge, or sand under the desert, or whatever the fuck that is. I actually started telling the story of how I met Alpi, our online editor, and then got totally distracted by shiny objects and ended up trailing off, babbling on and on about Red Wing Bar and Grill in North Park in San Diego. Just to wrap that up real quickly, I met Alpi at a weekly burner meet and greet, which happens on Tuesday nights at the aforementioned bar. Drop by if you're in town and wear your fake fur. And I ordered a vodka soda. So the bartender there, Jeremiah, I always remember his name because we think about Jeremiah was a bullfrog. We love that guy. And he has a bit of a heavy pour. And fuck. I did it again. I started to trail off talking about nonsense. Let's get back to Alpi. I swear I'm going to actually finish that story this time and not ramble on and on. Alpi is tiny in stature, but has the personality the size of a woolly mammoth. She and I started chatting, and she started telling me about how she had been looking to start a burner blog. And I said, hey, I'm starting a podcast. Why don't we join forces? And we did. And the rest is history. And in fact, she was my guinea pig for our very first test recording with this very mic. So, I'll play you a little clip from that here so you can get an idea of her voice. Okay, so angry monkey sex. Continue. Angry monkey sex.
Actually, bonobos, I guess. Or you may be pronounced bonobos. Different people have different preferences, but potato. The bonobos, let's call it that, when they have a conflict of interest, their way of doing conflict resolution is having sex, and that not necessarily is intercourse, but it can be this is where the term sword fencing comes from. If two males get together and have fun with each other's, just playing with each other's penises, then that's sword fencing, I guess.
Okay.
Is what it's called, fencing.
Sword fighting is what I guess is the term that I've been told.
I've heard both.
Passing with no experience of my own.
There you go, yeah. Or even the females will do the same thing together.
Scissoring?
I get pretty much, yeah. They'll scissor.
All right.
Yeah.
And that's how they solve their conflicts.
Yes.
God, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I'm like, I think I was a bonobo in a past life.
Chimpanzees fight one another and they'll fight to the death. Bonobos have sex and whoever likes it the best wins.
Yeah.
And that's how they get through their
Whoever likes it the best.
And then they're the one that, if they're fighting over banana, they're not going to split the banana. It's whoever got off the most gets the banana.
So are bonobos, these are the same species? Is that what we're calling them? I don't know.
Yeah.
No, sure. That they're, having sex several times a day. It's moms and children. It's everybody, right? There's no.
I don't think there's any limits. No, I know there is no. According to the study that I researched, there's no bias on age or chromosomes or.
And
anything,
they use sex for a little bit of for several different things, right? It's just even showing a little bit of affection. Here, let me just stick my penis in you for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, or at least on you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Hey, it looks like you had a rough day. Put this inside of you.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And there it is. That was Alpi. As I was dragging my feet and being a perfectionist and looking for subconscious excuses not to launch the show, Alpi started blogging her ass off, and I'm like, oh shit, I should probably launch the show because it's kind of weird for there to be a blog. But anyway, so there's the end of that overwhelmingly exciting story. Vodka. Anyway, today on the show we have the amazing, the charismatic, the beautiful Thanasi. Thanasi is originally from New York City and made his way out here to the West Coast for reasons which we'll get into in the interview. He was instrumental in building up TEDx, America's Finest City. And being a TED Talk addict, it was particularly exciting for me to have the opportunity to have some sort of connection to the TED world on this show, and so quickly. Thank you for that, producer Meg. Now, if only I can get Terry Gross from NPR's Fresh Air on here, I'm just going to go ahead and call it a day and end the show, because you can't aim any higher than Terry. She has nothing to do with burners, I know, but it's Terry motherfucking Gross. She's like the Leonardo DiCaprio of public radio. I have no idea what that means, but we're just going to move on from there. We're going to drop right into this chat with Thanasi. I should note that this interview was recorded a couple of months ago before San Diego's regional burn, Utopia, which you absolutely must come to. Thanasi organized U-Talks for Utopia, which was a series of talks at Center Camp designed loosely after the TEDx general model or whatever. I participated and talked about DMT and social media. Yeah. And I found a way to make that connection somehow, and cannabis may or may not have been involved in that brainstorming session. I'm not going to lie to you. I had like a 4:30 p.m. time slot. And if you've ever been to our regional, that's around the time where everybody is running back to their tents so they can put on their evening wear. And so I had an audience of like maybe 8, which grew to like 10 or 11 by the end. But I'm proud to say that I did make all 10 brains explode. So I'm proud. I had 100% satisfaction. That's the way I choose to look at it. Maybe I'll record that talk and release it on here at some point, but we'll see. But for now, let's get into that interview with Thanasi. I am Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was a fly with the balls and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name, and it felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, because there ain't no one for to give you no name.
It's hard to describe. It's they're just kind of doing little things here and there, like in the verbiage that they use, and I think they're having like happy hour gatherings and stuff, and people are building relationships, hanging out with each other, getting to know each other.
Cool.
But they do Wednesdays at Kate Sessions, and then Mondays it's downtown at the convention center.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like the t-shirts and stuff that they have, they're all like stenciled on, like it's
Super lo-fi.
Yeah.
But it's happening though.
Yeah.
They're out there doing it.
Yeah, and it's
pretty
really it was pretty amazing. The founder was there today, and he's like, man, these are like, he's flying around the country going to different places.
Wow,
and,
it really is taking off.
oh yeah,
Nice.
yeah. It's in a bunch of different cities. They have all these blogs set up, and they're active on social media. And the people that get into it, I mean, they get really into it. So everybody's kind of helping each other out, and it's really nice. It's a really positive, upbeat environment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
Very
really
cool,
nice.
man. And was it burner related?
I don't know.
Didn't get a chance to ask.
I mean, they seemed, for the most part, though, I mean, they seemed like a lot of like typical sort of like active people.
Mhm.
It seems like they have some influence, but I don't know yet.
Not
I didn't
confirmed.
really get
Suspicions.
Yeah, I'm suspicious. But I haven't seen it. It's funny. My cousin is like texting me, text after text, like we're talking relationship stuff.
Nice.
As we always do. Where are you coming from right now?
Right now, I just came from downtown at my office, the World Resource Sim Center, where I work.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does it you do there?
Business development, program management, and janitorial work, and anything that needs to be done. It's a nonprofit.
Small nonprofit?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's a pretty big nonprofit parent. It has probably a $200,000 operating budget.
Nice.
They've been in existence for about 27 years, something like that, pushing forward Buckminster Fuller's proposed linked global energy grid. There was a radical idea back in the 60s and 70s to link everybody via electrical transmission lines. And my director's been pushing forward that idea for 20-something years. And then in the last 3 years, he opened up this facility called the World Resource Sim Center, which is their headquarters as well as a rentable space that has 12 large screens connected to about 48 computer laptops.
Oh.
And it's supposed to be a high-tech facility for decision makers, world leaders, thought influencers, things like that, to come together and grapple with the world's issues.
Yeah.
It kind of got overlooked as the evolution of the internet and information became more available, but it's still a clubhouse for environmental aspects and a unique space, kind of like a NORAD, where you can come in and do strategy sessions, trainings, product launches, pitches, whatever.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So when did you get involved with that?
I actually got involved with it about 3 years ago when I moved here from New York. I got involved with TEDx America's Finest City, which is a TEDx program here in San Diego. And then through that, the director of this nonprofit actually attended one of my events. Serendipitously, he posted a job posting that kind of matched what I was looking for. So I went in and sat with him, and they were like, "We've been waiting for you. You're kind of perfect." So,
well, let me find that link here. So, what initially brought you to San Diego?
Well, I was working in Manhattan, in New York, for a financial media company. So we were doing conferences and events in the financial world. I was unhappy with how I was contributing towards the downfall of our society in that frame of reference. And
was there a moment where you thought, "Oh my God, what am I doing?"
Yeah, pretty much 2008, probably around January, maybe. Actually, it was post the collapse. So maybe 2009, 2010. I'd worked my way up to like a manager position. I had 6 people under me. I was responsible for millions of dollars in sales. And I was like, okay, there's no upward mobility happening here. We were holding conferences on subprime mortgages and subprime lending, which is the main kind of cause for the economic collapse. And they were doing other things that just didn't seem in line with what I really wanted. Also, I had entrepreneurial aspirations, so I was like, all right, I'm going somewhere where it's positive. I've been there before. I fell in love with San Diego in 2001 when I came and visited. And I just kind of applied to some grad schools, didn't get into the programs that I wanted to get into, and decided to make the change and took the leap.
Did you know what was happening while it was happening when you were over there?
In 2008, yeah, I saw it coming.
Well, I mean, because it seems like there's so many different levels of people that were involved with what we refer to as the economic collapse now. Like you were actually working in that industry, but like as somebody who's working in the industry, were you looking around and sort of like seeing red flags, or was it like very clear and you were convincing yourself that it's all going to be okay?
The people who I knew who were actually directly involved, there were red flags and bells and whistles, and they were like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
We were in the media aspect, so we were covering the industry.
Yeah.
And what I saw didn't logically make sense. The fact that I was looking at real estate as a side business, and the fact that they were giving like 120% financing to people with no credit checks and no, what's the right word? Income statements, things like that. Yeah. It just didn't make sense. And then we started holding programs on subprime lending, which was all about targeting low-income people and getting them into houses and giving them access to financial resources, but ones that were above their means.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a direct red flag, but it just didn't sit right with me. And then come 2008, 2009, I was like, okay, we're the cutting edge of the industry. Whatever we're working on is really where the industry is going.
Yeah. Because you were also doing some real estate assessment on the other side. So you're looking at it from both different angles. Yeah. And then you're seeing the red flags. Like a lot of the people that were involved, would you say like the general attitude was more, I just don't want to lose my job? Or was it just, blissful ignorance?
I don't want to lose my job. I want to make as much money as possible, and a little bit of blissful ignorance. Yeah. I mean, the real estate exploration that I had done was in 2002 through 2003, 2004, something like that.
Yeah.
So I was earlier in my career, but I was always attracted to real estate because my father was an architect. I grew up in that business and seeing him do his thing, and I was like, real estate, houses, makes sense. But looking at how they were willing to give so much financing and it just didn't make sense. It just didn't really work.
Yeah. So. I'm not trying to lead you to like a question, but I'm just
cool.
Because a lot of people wonder, like, were some of these people who were further up at the top, who were responsible for some of these decisions, is calling them evil a strong word? They fucked a lot of us pretty hard.
They did. They really did. No, I wouldn't say that they're evil. I have a hard time describing anybody as evil because I think as individuals and as humans, I think we have an intrinsic nature to do good and be good. It's just that our perspective is sometimes skewed, and what we perceive as good for ourselves is not necessarily good for other people.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody at the top who's beholden to their shareholders and his boss, and somebody always has to answer to somebody else.
Yeah.
So if they're beholden to these expectations, they're trying to do the best they can, and sometimes they turn a blind eye. There's a great NoFX song where he says a line, "The guilty don't feel guilty, they learn not to." And it's the idea of people making chemical and weapons and believing that it's for national defense, but not really putting it together that it's not really national defense, it's national offense. And dropping bombs on innocent civilians in the name of freedom is something that people can buy into, and they think it's good. So they're not evil, they just don't know.
Yeah, I know. And full disclosure, I agree with you on your general attitude towards the human cause. I mean, just the way that human beings operate, the way our brains operate. Nobody's the villain in their story. Everybody's the hero in their own movie. And but it's fascinating because that's one of the questions that kind of interests me as well is, how do we define evil? Because the word exists, the concept exists. But do we, like, if we had to define it, could we say theoretically that it's someone who is not interested in anybody's gain but their own?
That's a decent definition.
So I mean, with some of these people that were further up at the top, I guess maybe an argument could be made that word could be used if there's no other way to describe them.
Yes, totally agree with that.
Yeah, but they were, I mean, ultimately looking out for their own interest and finding ways to justify it and make themselves the good guys.
I totally agree. One caveat to that is that, unfortunately, the system that we currently operate in promotes and advocates for survival of the fittest.
Yeah, and that's my question.
So it reinforces the idea of look out for yourself. Don't worry about everybody else.
Yes.
And that's really what I'm trying to change. And I think everyone in this community and in this subculture is trying to change. And the idea of, I don't know if you've heard it before, but Ubuntu. It's I am because we are. So it's like, I'm happy because you're happy. And that's something that's kind of starting to permeate into our collective consciousness.
Yeah.
But it's
Where is that from?
Ubuntu is a Kenyan or Nigerian, South Africa somewhere.
Yeah. I'm terrible at remembering where I'm getting the quotes. I'm constantly dropping references to like studies that I can't remember where I read. So they could all be just bullshit.
Well, 97% of all statistics are made up on the spot.
On the spot. Absolutely. They because that's definitely fascinates me because I have a history in our political system, for example. And that's something that I struggle with quite a bit because I understand that the same thing that your understanding is that it's not necessarily that these are evil or bad people, but the system is set up in a way to kind of make us fail. I mean, how could the system possibly be a different way, though? I mean, other than more regulation, but then you have the potential for going dramatically the opposite direction.
Well, kind of my personal belief is that the system reflects the individuals. And if we start to change our individual perspective and really work on ourselves, the system will follow. They're tied together. Individual enlightenment leads to personal change in behavior and action. And if there's enough of a groundswell or momentum, then we can change political will. And that can ultimately change the system. The problem, though, is that the people in power like to perpetuate that power, and they don't want to see the system change. So I mean, it's a really complex question.
It is.
And issue.
It is. Yeah, it's something we've been struggling with, arguably, since the dawn of civilization. And it's such a chicken or the egg situation, because on one hand, I mean, if you're looking at sort of like a Maslow's pyramid approach to it, you have to get to a place of financial stability in order to be in a position to start exploring the self. And as you explore the self, arguably, eventually you could potentially come to that place where you say, all right, well, I'm kind of hurting myself. I'm going to help myself. And when you help yourself, you end up helping others around you. And we kind of see that. But money's addictive. It's like a drug. Yeah. And you keep seeing a lot of these people who make it, they're just kind of hoarding it away. They're not actually spending it.
Yeah. It's a scarcity mentality of there's never going to be enough. I need to make sure that I have enough to survive. And then as you start making more, what the definition of enough changes, and that scale starts growing, because all of a sudden you have a more expensive car and a more expensive house, and what you were making before, thinking that that was going to be enough to satisfy you, is no longer enough because you have more bills. And it's a vicious cycle. It's that drug addiction of, looking for that next fix. And unless you have that inner kind of compass to adjust or manage your expectations, it can be a slippery slope. I think that the system that's currently in operation within our society, it doesn't have much flexibility. That's why I really like the Burning Man culture so much, is because it's a complete alternate option, and it really highlights the things that we want to exemplify. But it doesn't put it into a utopian kind of like perfect world. The playa is not a perfect world. There's strife, there's struggle, there's hardship, there's crime. It's a really good petri dish to try different things out.
Yeah, and it's I feel the same way. That's the same thing that attracted me to this culture. And it's kind of interesting because just even being at the burn and just being involved with the local community and meeting these amazing people from these other places, one of the sort of observations that I've had is that we are experiencing a lot of people in our community. It's hard to describe, but we do have to some extent a place of privilege. We do live here. We do live in the United States. We are not starving. And sort of like the next step that comes from that is, okay, I have food on my plate. I have, some kind of money in my wallet. So the next thing is I want to explore art and I want to explore spirituality. And you have so many people around the world that don't have access to those kind of things. And we want them to sort of come to this place, but it's kind of harder to do when they don't have access to that.
Yeah.
I mean, how again, like that's kind of vicious cycle, how else are people going to come around to exploring the self, exploring spirituality, exploring growth, if they're kind of falling into that mentality?
Well, chicken the egg. Are you a burner when you go to the playa, or are you a burner before you go to the playa? There's a lot of conversation around that I've had with a lot of people, and I would definitely say that I was a burner before I got to the playa, because I was immersed in a culture of deviant behavior, if you want to put it that way.
Yes.
And what that means is listening to electronic music, going to raves, understanding what Plur is all about, and not necessarily
heathen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, completely.
Oh my God.
to most people, it is because they're scared of love in some ways. People don't trust it. They push it away, and when you open your arms and want to give somebody a hug, and they're not used to that, they get very defensive and very like, what do you mean? But exploring creativity, exploring the self, it's not something that comes only with privilege, personally. I mean, there are plenty of poor people around the world who are considered enlightened, but they're destitute and they're poor. Or, you know, the homeless man on the street that you see downtown in San Diego, is that a choice? Are they recognizing that the system is corrupt and are super enlightened and are just like, I'm going to remove myself from that and go on my own spiritual, blissful journey? And then you have artists who are very much, you know, screw the system. I'm going to go and create, and that's just what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be a starving artist until they become, you know, a featured artist somewhere. And somebody says, oh, you know, you actually got some good stuff. And then that person usually capitalizes on the artist. And then that vicious cycle of our capitalist structure comes into play, of one person being taken advantage of by another.
Being a burner before you go to burn, that's kind of that's a discussion I was involved in quite a bit, because I discovered the community maybe a year before actually going to the burn. I mean, my first response, I'm sure, as was yours, was, where the fuck have you people been my whole life? When was it that you discovered the community?
Well, I would say actually 1998 is when I first came across Burning Man proper. And what it was I was actually looking for colleges to go to, and I'm from New York and was looking at rave culture in Washington, D.C., and the internet was...
That was a selling point, huh?
Well, I mean, yeah, actually it was, because I was super not enamored, but I was just passionate about the energy that I got from the rave experience. And the type of people that I was seeing, and the experience itself was just really cool. And I wanted that to be part of my college experience, and I wanted to be near a big city that had that. And luckily enough, DC actually had one of the best clubs in the world at the time. And I met an individual who had been...
What was the club?
It was called Buzz.
Buzz, okay.
Yeah, it was held at the Capitol Ballroom in Southeast DC, murder capital of the world. Yeah. But anyway, I met this individual, Nabil, and he, I think, had been to Burning Man once at that point. And I had been looking around the community and be like, yeah, anybody know about Burning Man? Anybody heard about this? No, don't know, don't. And he knew about it. So that's kind of when I started first coming across the people with the same mentality. But my first trip to the playa was 2004, so it took me a little while to get there. But then seeing what it actually is was a little bit more than what I had been shown already. I had seen people be creative. I'd seen people being open. I had been, you know, in harsh environments and pushed myself and been around other people who were pushing themselves to grow or survive, if you will. But the scale and magnitude and environment of the playa it was mind blowing for the first time.
What about the burner community attracted you? Sort of, what would you say was different about it than the raver community?
It was more about the art and less about the altered state, if you will. There was a lot of focus on self-expression and sharing gifts just for the sake of sharing gifts. Rave culture had a little bit of that, but it was around an event that you paid a ticket to go see, and the DJ was on the stage, and it was people looking at the DJ. And I wasn't necessarily looking at DJs. I was dancing in the corner by myself. But whenever I would stop, I would feel this energetic surge of shared experience. Just looking around the room and seeing all these people dancing and just having a ball, smiles on their faces.
I kind of felt like in the raver scene, the ravers like really wanted to be burners, but it was burner was sort of like the next level, you know, of that level of openness.
I don't think people even knew that burners were around. When like from 96 through 2000, I think it was definitely an underground thing that not many people really knew about, especially on the East Coast.
Did you go back and get involved with the community on the East Coast? Yeah.
When I graduated school, I went up to New York, went back home, and started working in the financial media industry or conference industry. And actually, I think it was after Burning Man that I finally went and reached out to the New York list and DCOM and became a ranger and just started helping out with, you know, Costume Colts events and things like that. So
do you what is it, do you think, that you get sort of at the burn that you can't really get access to in the regionals or in the DCOMs or just in the local community.
The environment. And what I mean by that is the playa itself, like the dry lake bed. It's a harsh reality that we don't like to really deal with, but it pushes you to your limits. And my burns have not... I've been to 10, and I would say more than 50% of them have been really hard and really trying, but I've grown so much coming out of them. And one, it's the personal growth that comes from the struggle. Two, it's the awe and inspiration that I see from other people, and just that connection to know that there are other people out there like myself, like-minded individuals who, I may not see them in the daily life or in the subways, but I know they're there. Yeah, that's something you can't get in regionals. I feel like it's a little bit different. It's cliquish in regionals. People have their own camps and their own little groups, and the playa, that just all dissolves.
Yeah. Yeah, the playa does really just, it pokes and prods at you in ways you couldn't even imagine until you get out there. Yeah. So, were you involved with TEDx back in New York?
No, it actually didn't exist back in New York. I came across TED in 2006 because I was in the conference and event industry by doing research. And
so you move out here and you're kind of doing research, and that's when you discovered TEDx?
No, actually, I knew about TED in 2006 through the online videos when they just kind of got online. I'd been watching them in the same way that I was looking for people who knew about Burning Man. I was looking for people who knew about TED.
Gotcha.
Nobody knew about it. Everyone was like, what the hell are you talking about, these TED Talks? Are you crazy? Whatever. And I'm like, yeah, 20-minute talks about this person who had a stroke, and they explained it, and they're a neuroscientist, and it was super fascinating. You got to watch it. It's great. But then when I moved out here in February 2011, my sister had actually been out here and was involved with a startup company. And that startup company was a sponsor for the first TEDx that was held in San Diego, or one of the first TEDx's that was held in San Diego. My sister knew that I was super passionate about the TED Talks, and she just connected me with Mark Dewey, who was an individual who was running that program at the time. And I jumped in head first and said, you know what, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. So yeah. 2011, we had our first event at Scripps Seaside Forum. Did sponsorship and just general operational stuff. From that experience, they saw that I knew what the hell I was doing, and they pretty much gave me the reins in 2012 and said, here, go do something. And I said, yes, please.
How long had that been around before you came?
Then just that year, 4 months. Like, I jumped in the middle of their planning process.
Yeah, so you've kind of like helped like kind of hone the culture of that particular TEDx.
Yes, TEDx America's Finest City has definitely been something that the founder, Mark Dewey, Jackie Lee Dewey now, and a couple of the people had the right mentality, but they didn't really know how to bring it all together. And from my experience of Burning Man and allowing people to really shine and giving them a structure that's informal, but a structure nonetheless, helped build a community and not just an event. Many of the TEDx's that are out there are, we hold one event a year and we highlight speakers, and that's it. And the volunteers come back each year to put on the event. What I wanted to do was build a community of people who are year-round looking to enact or put into action these ideas. Yeah. Because you can get up on stage and talk about a grandiose idea, but if you don't follow it up with action, then it's fruitless.
How do you supervise that exactly?
Well, the ideas that come from the stage are usually already in process, and facilitating that is by supporting those people who are on stage with the idea. So we held follow-up events in 2011. We held like 13 different follow-up events for each speaker. For 2012, we held Salon series where we got to reconnect with the speakers from the original program and find out where they're at, and then plug people in who have common interests and act as a conduit to share ideas and get people exposed to new things, and then give them something local that they can get involved with, and kind of bridging that gap.
Yeah, there's I do wonder how much involvement Center TED has on the TEDx's. I worked with TEDx San Diego, which was at UCSD this past year. Same thing. Big fan of the videos, and same desire sort of to go be around some of these like-minded people. Personally, when I found a burner community, I'm like, okay, here are the people that I'm looking for. I definitely think TED is doing an amazing thing for the overall conversation. there is, there have been like some controversies about TEDx's grip on the kinds of people that do speak. Some people have been censored from time to time. I'm wondering sort of what your experience with that has been.
Well, TED is a brand, and it's an international brand, and they're very protective of their reputation and how they're used in the same way that Burning Man is. So it's understandable that they have a lot of control issues. We've been a bit of the black sheep of the TEDx family because we pushed the boundaries, and like I said, we weren't looking at just one event, we were looking at a community. So we helped them kind of develop the TEDx program over time, and it was an interesting experience.
Was there things that you wanted to do that they were not?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Can you talk about it?
No, not really.
Damn.
I think I got away with a lot, though. I mean, for my event in 2012, we had 27 speakers in about 8 hours. It was kind of unheard of. Yeah, it was unheard of. It was ridiculous. But some of the branding, use of the logo, stuff like that, controlling who gets on stage, or more importantly, who gets repeated by TED proper, is touchy subject because there are people who have had their licenses pulled based on putting up somebody who was fuzzy science or spiritual stuff. It's out there, people believe in it, there's some studies being done on it, but the people speaking didn't have the credibility, or it wasn't in line with technology, entertainment, and design, and what the TED brand really was.
I feel like the most famous example of that was Graham Hancock, who had his talk pulled by TED proper, but then people had sort of already downloaded it and reshared it, and he reshared it himself. Are you familiar with that one?
The name sounds familiar, but I can't remember the specific topic.
Big proponent of DMT.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he's talking about ayahuasca and DMT. And I mean, my reaction to it personally was, of course they're going to pull that. He's a journalist.
It depends on what perspective he was trying to present, and whether he was analyzing DMT from the chemical, scientific point of view.
His talk was called "The War on Consciousness."
That's a little bit woo-woo. Yeah, that's the fuzzy line that they don't really like to support, because when they put somebody on the stage or back them with their brand, they're kind of endorsing them. And if it's kind of that deviant borderline, people don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I think the sense that I got, I mean, I wasn't obviously behind the scenes on these conversations, but it felt to me like there was a concern about the crowd that it would bring. I don't think there was necessarily a question about Graham Hancock as an intellectual, as a journalist. I mean, he's an accomplished individual. And I'm sure he would disagree with what I'm saying. But there was definitely, I think, a sense of perhaps the mass audiences were not ready for it, because TED is sort of in a position to make intellectual subject matter sexy. And that is what they've been doing. They're getting people involved in discussions that might have historically not had a place to go to. So it's kind of interesting to kind of watch that progression. I feel like in the next few years, they're going to start opening up a little bit more about some of these things.
I would agree to a point. I think that they're going to stay true to their core, and that the idea of it bringing in a different market or demographic of audience is really fascinating, because for me, I think that TED belongs to everybody, and it should be shared, and there should be TEDx talks on the side of the street for homeless people to become educated and share these ideas that are so valuable. TED brand proper, I think, thinks it's more of a business networking, innovation into social good, quote unquote. So the caliber of attendee it's curated. I mean, there's barriers to entrance. For a regular TED conference, it's $10,000, $8,000, $10,000, $13,000, whatever it is. You have to be nominated by somebody who's already attended. It's a very ancillary group. So when you start saying, you know what, I just want the average individual to be there, it dilutes their value in some way.
I mean, a lot of these, I think it's a lot of similar concerns with the Burning Man brand to some extent, isn't there?
Yes, very much so. And actually, this is kind of touching on some of the things that I am trying to work towards, specifically within San Diego. I have this theory, I don't know, how do I want to call it, but spheres of influence. So the Burning Man culture is very diverse. People come from all over the world and all over their cultural segments.
I've always described it as more of an umbrella culture. There's a lot of subcultures underneath it that have their own communities, their own quote-unquote leaders, et cetera, their own celebrities. It's kind of a place that we've all kind of agreed to just get along.
Yeah, totally. And I think that there are other communities that exist in the default world that do the same thing. So TED is one of them, where it brings together people of diverse backgrounds who are interested in academic or intellectual pursuits. Finding the overlapping areas of those interests allows us to see our common bonds rather than our differences. So that's why I personally don't like to say that, oh, you need to be a CEO or, you know, this stature within traditional structures in order to be an appropriate market for this program. Somebody who is a student or an unemployed artist could be a genius, a savant, and be able to add a piece to the puzzle that no one else can do. But by ostracizing them because they don't fit this preconceived notion of what the demographic or market is very short-sighted, in my opinion.
I agree.
It's not inclusive either.
I agree because I'm a genius and I just have a podcast.
Oh, there you go. But some other things that I've been involved with, so Maker Faire, which is, I don't know how to describe it, but it's the largest show and tell in the world. It's for people who tinker, DIY people. It started in San Francisco, and it attracts people who like to work with their hands. And it actually feeds off of the Burning Man culture in a very strong way, where a lot of their iconic projects that have elevated their not opinion, not view, their perspective in society, I guess. But
sure.
Right, can't find the word.
Appearance? I think it's safe. Yeah.
It brings together these different people who like to do the same thing, and that's tinker, and that's deconstruct or reconstruct and create and replicate and whatever. But that's part of the burner community also. So there's the TED people who are the thinkers, there's the makers who are the doers, if you will, and then there's the burners who are the creatives. And then these three different societal segments, I think, are key to evolving things. But that doesn't happen unless you give them an opportunity to connect on things that they find common interest in. So opening the doors is really what I'm about, and sharing the knowledge and allowing more people to come in. It's something that I think the internet is really highlighting too, is that, you know, the idea of open source and sharing of information and connecting us across the world, and, you know, being able to instigate revolutions.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a beautiful thing. I mean, a lot of people refer to the internet as a tool. I think especially the older generation. I think it's another level of consciousness, really.
It's collective consciousness.
It's
a hive mind.
It is, and it's, you know, the downside of it is that there was a study I was reading about, which I won't be able to reference for you, which was finding that, generally speaking, neighborhoods are starting to become more polarized. It used to be a
polarized.
time. Actual physical neighborhoods. I don't know if that's the correct word, but basically, imagine our parents' generation might have lived in a neighborhood where one neighbor was Republican, the next one was Democrat, the next one was independent or whatever. The common thread between them was that maybe they all worked at the steel mill. Whereas now what they're finding is that individual neighborhoods are becoming a lot more specifically a certain political affiliation. Right now we're in Mission Hills in San Diego. A lot of KPBS license plates around here, a lot of Priuses.
Gotcha.
You know, you go to El Cajon, it's a little bit different. Like, I do wonder, like, what you're, you know, you're working with a lot of, you're a community builder, basically. That is a lot of what's happening. What do you find as far as, like, what challenges are coming your way? Because on one hand, we do have the internet. We are able to connect people. On the other hand, we do have the current reality of the country that we live in, the world that we live in, where people are sort of, to some extent, backing in the corners.
That's interesting revelation. I didn't realize that that's happening. It does make sense, though. I mean, if you look at cities and regions within states, I mean, like Austin, the blue dot in a red state, or San Diego, the red dot in a blue state.
Because you used to not know what somebody was until you really got to know them, had dinner with them, you develop a relationship, and then it was revealed, hey, this is my political opinion. Whereas now it's slapped on your Facebook page.
Pretty much, yeah.
So you know right away.
Yeah, we're definitely sharing a lot more information about ourselves, and it's easier to stereotype somebody.
Do you feel any resistance when you're working on projects such as these?
Yes. There are people who want to hold on to what's theirs, and they think that they know what the definition of their community is.
How do you bring them around?
Through experience, showing them that they're wrong.
Let me tell you why you're wrong. Yeah.
Not let me tell you. Let me show you, or let me introduce you to somebody who you respect and let them tell you.
Yeah.
Because if you're a stranger coming out of the woodworks and you're like, oh, you are the same thing as you. You're a Republican, you're a Democrat. You guys are the same.
Yeah.
They'll be like, no, we're not. What are you talking about? But if there's a third party, or if there's an experience that they share, they'll be like, oh, wait, actually I am. And hopefully it'll start to shift their perspectives on how they interact and relate to the people around them. There's a lot of objection. I think that people in general don't want their beliefs and their opinions challenged. They get very defensive if you try and present them with something different.
They've even found psychological studies have found that people will just kind of reinforce their beliefs.
Yeah, I've come across that recently too, is that people don't look for unbiased information now. They look for information that reinforces their position. And it's safe, and it's warm, and it's cuddly, and people want to do that, and they don't want to face the reality that they could be wrong.
How do you show that to them? I mean, I can tell you my personal opinion. I mean, the reason I went down the artist rabbit hole was that I came to the conclusion that you can put all the facts and logic in front of people that you want, but ultimately the majority of people, not everyone, makes their decisions more based on emotional factors. If you can get people to feel, hey, this person is the same as me, they're having the same struggle, it's more likely that they will listen to what their needs and what their grievances are than if you're just put a stack of documents in front of them and say, hey, read this.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, as a community builder, like as an artist, the way I approach it is by trying to tell stories. I mean, to some extent, this podcast is an example of that. I want to tell your story. I want to tell the stories of other guests that I have on to move people into thinking, oh, there's something interesting happening here. But I do wonder, coming from your perspective as a community builder and your background in conferences and company, the nonprofit that you work for, how do you approach that when you don't necessarily have a movie to show or a painting to paint?
Hands-on, participatory. In the same way that you become family with your campmates on the playa because you suffer together. Yeah, I think that's personally for me one of the best ways to break down people's perspectives or ideologies is to suffer with other people.
So how do you make people suffer with each other if they don't even want to talk to each other?
You give them something that they can suffer together with, or on a project that they care about. It's really tricky.
Yeah, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah, totally.
You are tuned in to Burner Podcasts.
All right. We're just going to take a quick little break and give you some dates of some upcoming events, some cool shit. If you happen to be around Southern California or looking to make your way out here in the next few days, on December 6th, Collab is having their holiday craft fair and fundraiser. Collab is this awesome burner hub in San Diego where you can go in to create art or to just hang out and meet some burners. It's really cool. There's going to be local burner arts. There's going to be crafts. There's going to be create an ugly holiday sweater. There's going to be DJs. There's going to be food. Oh, wow. DJs at a burner event. That's shocking. The address there is 6055 Fairmount Avenue, San Diego, California, 92120. It's behind Ace Electric. So if you're around, that's on December 6th. December 12th through the 14th is the big frocking sale at Frock U. Frock U is a burner and vintage apparel and accessory store. It is burner owned and operated. So the address there is 4121 Park Boulevard. That's in San Diego. The zip code is 92103. Look up Frock U. Frock U is spelled F-R-O-C-K. U is Y-O-U. Please tell me you know how to spell that. December 13th is San Diego SantaCon. I'm just going to go ahead and read here exactly what producer Meg wrote. SantaCon is an annual mass gathering of people dressed in Santa Claus costumes, parading publicly on streets and in bars in cities around the world. The focus is on spontaneity, self-expression, and creativity, while having a good time and spreading cheer and goodwill. I have a strong feeling Meg took that verbiage from somewhere, which means she's resourceful, and I'm proud of her. That's going to be in Hillcrest. The event listing is going to be on Facebook. I am not going to read this incredibly long link, but if you just go to Facebook and look up San Diego SantaCon and see that me and Meg and Alpi have RSVP'd for it, it's probably going to be easy to find. Because I know there's another one that happens in downtown, and I think I went to that one last year. But yeah, look for the one that's in Hillcrest. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get back to our interview with Thanasi.
Burner Podcast.
I'm a big fan of meeting people where they are, and that's why I've kind of, I don't want to say manipulated, but utilized the pre-existing institutions such as TED and such as Maker Faire and such as the environmental causes to kind of turn people on to these principles and experiences and points of view that our community shares. Yeah. It's really hard. I would say it really comes down to experience and collaboration. So at my TEDx, I had lots of hands-on creativity stuff. We had, I forgot his name now, but he everybody made balloon bassoons. And what it was a piece of PVC pipe with a balloon on top of it. And when you stretch out the balloon and blow into it, it makes a really weird sound.
What's a bassoon?
A bassoon is like a long type of instrument. It's kind of like a saxophone, but just longer. It looks like a big pipe with it's a wind instrument, technically.
Okay.
Anyway, so
I've never heard of this instrument.
No. A bassoon in general?
Yeah.
Never?
I've never heard of it.
Oh, man, you gotta look it up. It's a cool instrument. It's basically this really long, like, pipe that looks like a vertical flute of extra large size.
What band could I look up that has a bassoon?
Big band.
Big band, okay.
Yeah, big band swing
gotcha.
would have it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a low-based kind of sound.
Harry Connick Jr. might have some experience with a bassoon.
Personally, I don't think he does, but his band members do.
Okay. So you had people make bassoons.
Yeah, so, but the process of making a bassoon and sitting next to somebody else making a bassoon, you can't help but talk to them and say, oh, that's really cute how you made that your initials out of it, or you decorate it, and giving them an art experience to collaborate on. Yeah. It breaks down the walls of, I don't know, fear. But this is an art project. This isn't suffering. This is fun. On the other ends, community cleanups. I don't even know.
So many different projects.
Well, I'm trying to think of like really what highlights my philosophy, but it's hard to find something in particular because it's my personal experience, and that's the way that I form relationships with people, and I get to see who they really are. Maybe it's my East Coast mentality of like picking fights with people to see what they're made of. Here in California, people don't like that. They don't like sarcasm. They don't like to be challenged. They don't like conflict.
We like politeness.
Yeah, exactly. In New York, everybody likes a little bit of a rough edge and sharp, biting comments, and we show affection by knocking each other down and busting each other's balls. That's just the way it goes.
I mean, as an event planner, what I've always said when I'm working with different teams on doing events is that you kind of have to force people into playing some sort of a game, for example, that they will bitch and complain about the entire time, but they will thank you for it secretly after it's done.
Okay.
I mean, to some extent, I feel like
it's kind of a similar thing.
Yeah.
Because they're bitching and complaining together.
Yeah.
They all hate it.
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's finding a common enemy. And if the enemy is the ply or the environment or the enemy is something, but if people can join forces to work against something else, that forms some sort of solidarity.
Tell me on subject that you just started touching on, sort of the difference that you've discovered, that you've observed in the burner culture on the East Coast versus here on the West Coast, Southern California.
New York is it's bigger. It's a lot bigger. It has theme camps. It has the same kind of aspects, but because it's so spread out, it's harder to connect, I guess. You can jump in on certain projects and be a part of it, but it's hard to really feel like you're making an impact because it's so spread out. Here in San Diego, it's easy to make an impact. It's a tight-knit community. There's established anchor points, if you will. It's easier to see the differentiation between the people who make Burning Man happen or the community happen, and then the people who participate and enjoy the experience. In New York, it was harder to make that differentiation. I don't want to say that the people who don't participate in making it happen are sparkle ponies, but some people would define that and say that these people are, the ones who enjoy the experience, but they don't actually put in the sweat labor. And that's actually why they're not the same, is because they haven't shared that common experience. So they don't find value in that common experience of building a temple together or building utopia together or the umpteen other projects that the community does.
Yeah, there's a one example that I've had burners who have lived in other cities give me is that for us, the playa is a lot more accessible. It's a lot closer to us.
Of course.
So you have a lot more people that have actually been to the playa, whereas you go to the East Coast or the South, you have cultures that have developed of people who've never been to the burn. So there's a little bit of difference in the way that they experience this community versus the way that we do over here.
I think that would be true. It's definitely a lot easier to get to the playa from San Diego. There's no doubt about it.
Did you find that over there, would you say a majority had been to the playa, or would you say it was more common to meet people who have not been, who are still active members of the community?
When you go to the events that are happening, if you go to the happy hour, which is the longest running happy hour in burner culture, there are obviously people who have been to the playa. Yeah, it's not something that people who are newbies really go to or continue to go to if they don't have a reason to engage with that. And
it's more people reminiscing versus new people discovering.
No, yeah, maybe. Yeah. I would say that, I guess. The DCOMs were definitely run by people who were either in theme camps or been to the playa.
How big was the DCOM over there?
The last one that they held, which was far end of Brooklyn, 3,000 people?
Yeah, it's about the same as the San Diego one.
But it was only one day. And it actually wasn't even a full day. It was just one, 24 hours, 12 hours, whatever.
So it was a DCOM. I mean, the one in San Diego, our San Diego is basically a regional burn.
It's a regional, yeah exactly. So in the East Coast, they have Playa del Fuego. Yeah. And that one, I don't know what the numbers were, but I think that overall it's grown. I never actually got a chance to go to Playa del Fuego.
Is that in New York?
That's in Maryland, actually.
Maryland, okay.
Yeah, and that's their regional burn. So it's the East Coast, the Northeast, if you will.
People travel down from all over.
Everyone kind of converges on Playa del Fuego. For the Southeast, it's not Integratron. What is it called? Something Tron. Gravitron. Something Tron. Anyway.
Yeah. Google it, listeners.
Yeah, exactly. But when I would go to fundraisers for Disorient or Costume Cult, it was a mix. It was people who were like, "Oh, I'm out. This is just a cool party. It's just another New York City party." It just felt like anything else. I mean, it's another warehouse party with people with Glofer and cool techno music and some art and stuff. I think the community's changed. I actually feel a little awkward speaking of it now because
you've been gone for a while.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know really what it is now. Sure. I only knew what it was, and it was from 2003 through 2008, 9, 10, somewhere around there. It was a strong community, though. I mean, there are people who just bust their ass. I mean, they started doing the containers, and now that's a huge thing. So
containers.
So New York community organizes shipping containers that they pack and sell by the square footage and then ship out to the playa and then drop off at the playa, and all New York City burners can go and grab their stuff and go camp and then put it back in the container and ship it back.
That's fantastic.
And it's super affordable and it's totally community organized, and it's not for profit, and they just do it because it's something that was needed.
Yeah.
And for me and my subgroup or clique that I went to the Burn with for many years, shout out to Freezer Burn and to UCBW, we actually ended up getting a storage unit in Reno and compiling all our stuff there because it didn't make sense to keep going back and forth.
Yeah.
But the need for the container arose, and now they send out 3 or 4 of them because the community's grown so much. And there are dedicated people who do that, and there are dedicated people who do all the fundraising and do all the big events that are out there, and they're super involved with the New York City community and culture in general. I mean, Figment started out there by Not That Dave. I mean, that was an awesome experience. I was in that sphere of things that were going on. I helped Spatch put on the second one, and it continues to grow. But like I said, it's so far removed from me right now. I just feel a little bit awkward.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure we're aware of that. What I'm curious about is part of what you were describing about just the difference in East Coast attitude is that, you just kind of knock somebody down and get to know them. What do you see on that with like the Burners, for example, like we're cuddly hippies hugging each other, like it's a little bit different there, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. That cliquish aspect is a little bit more visible when you meet people. Like at the decoms, I was rangering and people would just walk past you. There was no like, hi, how you doing? Who are you? What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. And I can give you a hug, and here, come meet my friends and whatever. It was, I got something to do. Get out of my way. And it still held on to that New York energy and pace and tempo. I mean, obviously, when things slowed down, there was a little bit of more of that not formality, informality, or friendliness. But it was a little more tough to make friends because you might live in the Bronx and they might live in Jersey, but it's still the same community. But you're never going to come across them again unless it's a organized event. Here in San Diego, you might run into them tomorrow at who knows where. I mean, it's just a smaller community.
Do you have a preference?
Well, obviously, I'm more inclined to have a preference towards San Diego now because this is where I live.
That's why you came here.
This is part of the reason, yeah.
The burner community was one of the selling points to move into San Diego?
It wasn't actually, but it has become. I kind of got disenfranchised with the burner community in the default world because of that cliquishness. Like I overextended myself and was a ranger and helped with decoms and art projects, and because I wasn't connecting and really making a friendship network within New York, and I still felt like, oh, well, at the end of the day, I'm going to the burn with my camp. It just felt a little bit overwhelming to try and do everything for the community and then for myself. So I kind of took a step back in 2009, 10, and actually I skipped the ply in 2009, and I kind of reassessed where I was spending my time and what I was doing. So then when I came out to San Diego in 2011, I really was hesitant to jump in again. But I reached out to Nicole and the regional contact here and slowly started dipping my toe in and kind of seeing what's going on. And I realized that it was strong and that there was a family here.
Yeah.
And it has that same kind of beat you down kind of aspect, but it's more of a playful kind of beat you down type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
talk
mean,
honestly.
We've all been beaten down at some point. What was it about, do you think, here that sucked you in a little bit more? I mean, other than obviously the friendliness. A lot of people talk about the San Diego community being friendlier, but I mean, I don't know.
Well, actually, the more I learned about the community here, the more I realized how influential it is in the larger Burning Man culture. Because we are close to the playa, and we're not as close as San Francisco, and San Francisco is obviously the hub, but second best city other than Reno, I might say is San Diego. I wouldn't put LA there. I mean, maybe SoCal is all kind of one region. I don't know, but I didn't realize how many serious people and how many awesome projects and just how dense it is down here. So
yeah, I've definitely discovered, and again, these are just all our observations, but the LA culture is very different. A lot more like film industry types in that scene. I feel like in San Diego, it's a little bit more, for lack of a better description, hippie. You know, in LA, for example, my LA friends use a term very often, fashion burner, which I don't hear so much in San Diego.
Nope. Never even heard that term, but I totally understand what you mean.
Yeah. In LA, you have a lot of people who are big on like coming just to like the biggest events and wearing the most expensive hippie clothes they can get their hands on. So it's actually really funny to watch that difference.
I wonder if that actually mirrors the cities. I guess it kind of does.
I'm certain it does.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm in LA like every weekend.
Yeah, San Diego is a hippie town. I mean, it does have a lot of what's the right word? Self-improvement roots or spiritual roots, if you will. Lots of yoga down here. Lots of the self-realization fellowship.
A lot more weed.
A lot more weed. Yeah, that makes a big difference too. I guess
our population's half stoned. I wonder, like, did you personally find yourself making any internal adjustments from the way that you would navigate the scene here versus the way that you did back home?
I did, but not because of the community. It was just my personal evolution that I was going through. My playa name is Alias. I actually have a legal name, which is Arthur, and then I have my Greek name, which is Thanasi. And
your social security number is
right. And I embody those two aspects. And Arthur is very much New York, and it's very fast paced. And I have something to do. You're in my way. Get out of the way. Let's get this done. Let's do it right. I'm not worried about making friends. And when I came to San Diego and started community building and doing the things that I was doing, that didn't really work out too well. You know, people just didn't take kindly to it. They respected what I was able to produce and were happy with the end result. But many times they were like, "You're really blunt. You got to work on your skills a little bit, communication skills. Be a little softer. Take some time. Be a little patient." And that was just a natural evolution that I came across. So when I really started getting involved with the burner community, that's kind of what I embraced from the get-go. And in some ways, I still feel, I don't want to say that I'm an outsider, but I'm not a fully engaged insider. You know, I kind of like my position of being on the fence. And that's actually what I'm trying to help the community realize its identity with being on the fence of the default and the playa. Because we're starting to move towards an influential point of our history, if you will, where we need to embody both and maybe move away from being all immersed in the playa and being only about the playa and only wearing tails and having pink hair and embodying that image or that stereotype of what a burner is, and realizing that just because it's not burner, quote unquote, doesn't mean it's not burner. You know what I mean? So I'm still trying to find my path within the community. I still want to do some large-scale art stuff. I want to bring in the makers. I want to bring in the TED people. I want to bring in the burners and have them collaborate on something that can actually be implemented in San Diego. I know it's a little tangential of an answer, but...
Well, no, that actually leads perfectly into what you're working on for this year's Utopia. Yeah. Which we're going to discuss after we stop recording the podcast.
Awesome.
So, I mean, you're taking, influence from what you learned at TED and from conference planning and everything else that you've been working on. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Meg King, who's a well-respected individual in the San Diego community.
Produced this show by booking this interview.
Yes. Yeah. A little shout out to Meg.
Literally had no idea who this guy was until I walked into my... I'm going to call it my studio.
Very luxurious, spacious.
Yes. Would you like some more Cristal?
Yes, please. Can I have that served with caviar on a virgin? That'd be great.
Is the masseuse doing a good job?
Excellent. I'm sure all the listeners now have a very good impression of what we're experiencing.
So. Oh, yeah. There's 25 girls here.
Yes. Fluffers.
I don't know how they fit
fluffers
in here.
galore. Yeah.
More fluffers.
Chop, chop.
Meg, more fluffers.
So Meg actually approached me last year about doing a TED Talk type experience in Center Camp. And Center Camp is her little baby that she wanted to have at Utopia. And she approached me with like 20 days before the event. And I was like, this ain't going to fucking happen. Yeah. Great idea. I love it. But contact me next year. So part of the reason why she wanted me to do it was because my TEDx event in 2012 was a very good amalgamation or melding of the two communities. I had a lot of burner icons, if you will. John Halcyon spoke from the stage, had the Animal Cracker Conspiracy people, just kind of had that collaborative experience. And what I intended to do with the program for, or I'm intending to do with the Utopia U-Talks, is give the community a voice. There's a reality that Burning Man has jumped the shark. We are in a new world.
Don't they fucking say that every year?
No, you
think it's different this year?
I think it's different the last 3 years, and it's been a growth kind of spurt, but it has reached a point where the general populace knows about Burning Man, not through their own endeavors to look for it, but because it's coming to them.
Yeah.
And they see it as something that's cool and that needs to be consumed.
Yeah.
And experienced. And people are putting it on their bucket list just to experience and say they've done it rather than being called to it. I think that our community had people looking for it in the same way in 97 or 98, whenever I found it. I was like, do you know about this? Have you heard about this? Have you gone to this? Where can I find out more?
It's in every magazine as one of the top 10 parties in the world.
Exactly. Now it's in your face, and it's going to stay in your face, and it's going to change, and that's good. Change is good. I'm not opposed to change. But what I want to make sure is that the core essence of what the community is continues to stay strong, and then starts to push out its own content or culture to the rest of the world, and making sure that stream of information or stream of influence maintains from Playa outwards rather than rest of the world inwards. And I mean, you look at the Moot map from this year and the various kind of key performance indicators of whether the Playa experience is the same, and I think that some people would say that it's not the same. And that might be because people don't know the values that our community holds, or that our event holds, and the way that you interact with it, and the way that you help it grow.
Do you see yourself in the near future not going to the Burn anymore?
No. Not ever not going. Maybe taking years off. I took this year off.
No matter how many sharks jump, you're still going to
no. Yeah, because it's always going to be different. And I'm always going to be different. And the Playa is always going to... The desert is going to be the same. Yeah. I mean, 50% of the population, another made-up statistic, is always new every year. I mean, that actually might be an actual fact.
I could be totally wrong. I want to say that it was... You said it was 3 years. I think it might have been 3 years ago or 2 years ago where they found that it was at 50%. I think up until that year, again, I could be wrong. Listeners can tweet me or something. Until that year, it was less than 50%. And then finally it got to a stage where now it was more than 50%. It was the first time on the Playa. So some of the culture was getting lost.
Yeah, exactly. So that 50% new people, they can either have an amazing experience and connect with it, and then come back the next year and be a participant and a citizen of Black Rock rather than a tourist in Black Rock. I give everybody a year pass.
Oh no, you described it. Yeah, you described it exactly the way that I was describing it too. Yeah. You have tourists and you have citizens.
Yeah, exactly. In your first year, you can be somewhat of a citizen or a traveler, if you will, if you're already exposed to it in some way. But you're still in awe. You don't know what the hell's going on. Second year,
you're in a plug and play camp, and you never come out except for the parties. You know, with the Native American headdress. I'd say probably more like
that's a whole other podcast.
A whole other podcast.
The plug and play definition needs to be changed. I think John or Halcyon made a good distinction that the current version of a plug and play or definition, like Caravansicle, is not plug and play. That's a safari, and it's meaning that it's completely extracted and removed from the experience. Plug and play has its place, but I don't like the words plug and play because before that word was there, it was just a camp that had dues, and you paid dues for water and food, and you showed up with the rest of the stuff, and you contributed to pounding in a rebar, and you were still a part of the experience. You weren't handing it off to somebody else to manage for you.
I think safari is a great word for it.
I think so too. That's why I'm perpetrating it and keeping using it.
I love that. We'll keep repeating it.
Yeah,
on the show. Safari.
So anyway, so the U-Talks are an opportunity for the community to have its voice amplified and heard. And there are people in the community who have been living, sleeping, eating, breathing, dying this stuff, and they are the ones who build it, and they need to be heard, and they don't have an opportunity to be heard. And since TED won't really be the platform for it, it's time to create our own platform. And why not do it at Utopia, where you have that mass of people coming together? So myself and Meg sat down, and we kind of were looking at what makes up the community and what's the hot topics that need to be discussed, and came up with a roster of about 20 to 25 individuals who we want to reach out to and invite to speak. And we've curated it down to about 9 or 12 people who will have approximately 18 to 20 minutes to speak their mind and share what they're working on, and hopefully inspire and incentivize other people to get involved and take on something. Yeah. I'm also planning on giving 5 to 10 minutes to all the registered theme camps and all the registered art to do whatever the hell they want on stage and be a part of the conversation. That could be them throwing pies at each other, or stripping, or doing a performance, or taking it, I don't want to say seriously, and expressing their manifesto.
Oh God, I hope so badly somebody strips and throws pies at each other.
Well, that's a great idea. I'm putting it out there.
It would be wonderful.
But that's the uniqueness of the culture, in that has a place, just like crystal bowl healings and dance music and dance church and movement and death. I think that our community handles death very well compared to the rest of the society. We actually set a place and a location for people to grieve. So hopefully we'll
and the grief is not seen as this negative, horrible thing that you just want to get rid of as fast as possible. It's, you embrace it. It's a part of your humanity.
Yeah, yeah.
What I'm certain a lot of the listeners would wonder, what would be the difference between U Talks, which is spelled Y-O-U, but is that correct? Okay, so like Utopia, which is spelled Y-O-U. What would be the difference between the U Talks versus the TEDx Talks that happen on the Playa?
Oh, that's an interesting point. TEDx Black Rock City does a great job. I've been to 2 of their programs. Obviously missed this year, but they are still beholden to TED and TED regulations, and Utopia or U-Talks isn't. There's no rules. This is kind of an open forum for us to speak, and I don't want to censor anybody.
Graham Hancock would not be censored.
He would not be censored at all. Drugs, like it or hate it, they're part of this culture.
So somebody might come up and just drop LSD in front of the audience.
If that's,
we can't promote that, obviously.
Why not?
For legal reasons, I imagine.
I mean, promote it. What's the definition of promotion? I mean, I wouldn't be selling it. I wouldn't be, advertising it. But if that's their experience, if they want to be on acid and talk for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, sure, why not? They might have something profound to share with us.
Yes, I'm sure.
Or they might just make an ass of themselves and it'll be funny. Yeah. I don't know, but we can't rule it out until we let it happen. And that's the wonder of the Playa. You can't tell me how to burn.
Yeah.
You can't dictate my experience. That's one thing I learned from rangering, is that everyone's having their own trip. Everyone's having their own experience. And it's not for you as a ranger to enforce some sort of predetermined expectation of what Burning Man is. It's just not.
So what are the parameters at UTalk? Because, I mean, even at TED, for example, it's what, technology, entertainment, design. Okay, so it has to fall within those kind of general areas.
For TED Talks, yes. For U Talks, it's more, how does it relate to the 10 principles?
Okay.
How does it communicate the values that we share, and how does it reinforce them or give people an opportunity to experience them? Some of the things that we're going to be talking about are Collab, which is a new burner space in San Diego. And it's meant to be a stepping stone towards a larger space where large-scale art projects can be worked on and a community can be formed around. San Francisco has Crucible, American Steel. Other locations have other things. We don't have anything yet. I mean, we have some small maker places like Maker Place or Fab Lab where you can get some stuff done, but it's not burner, quote unquote.
Yeah.
This is something that most people don't know about, and it's rather new. So hopefully shedding some light on that is going to help it grow.
Do you envision expanding UTalks into other regionals or even into the Playa?
Yes, definitely. I would like to see it be adopted by the Borg and replicated, but echoed through their channels so that more people can become aware of these talks. Ideally, I'd like to create a template that I could share with other regionals. So Flipside, Playa del Fuego, all the various other ones that are out there, and allow them to curate their own culture and their own community and how them speak.
Yeah. I guess the next question would also be at Center Camp in Black Rock City, they do have the stages where people do go up and speak. Would you say that, so U-Talks would be different, however, because these are more pre-planned rather than somebody walking up and
yes,
going off the dome, as we say in hip hop.
Yeah. Straight off the tip.
Yeah.
The thing that differentiates an open mic experience versus a TED Talk experience or a TEDx Talk or even a U-Talk, the way I'm trying to put them together, is that there is a curated amount of content and there's a focus to it, as well as credibility. The person who's speaking has authority to speak on the subject. It's not some blogger who's like, you know what, I have the answer to all of our problems. We're going to do this, and this is why. And
there's some vetting happening.
Exactly. There's a little bit of a process. It's not completely closed off, but there's some sort of curation that goes into who's speaking, what they're speaking about, and hopefully what they're actually going to say.
Yeah.
Like I said, myself and Meg, we went through the list, and we really thought about who's a good speaker, but also what topic do we want to hear them talk about and why. And luckily enough, it's actually working. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that's always good.
It's excellent. It really is excellent. I mean, it's not easy, but also it's not hard.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you so much for joining us, and it's a wonderful story. And I will be getting information about U-Talk and giving it out to our listeners, and
cool.
We'll put your contact info out if anybody out there is interested in contacting you to help walk them through the process, and maybe somebody at some of the other regionals are looking to hop aboard.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to reach out to me, they can reach me through my Twitter, which is just @Thanasi, and that's THANASI. Obviously, I don't know if you have a webpage for this podcast.
Yes.
It's amateur hour
stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty amateur hour, yeah. But I'll re-announce it after we're done here.
But yeah, I'm sure there'll be some sort of contact information. Reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help anybody. And
is it still going to be called U-Talks no matter where it goes?
I think so. I kind of like.
Good name.
I kind of like the connotation of it. Is that it's you talking? You know, it's not somebody else talking. It's not some other brand. It's you. And we'll see. I don't know. I just hope I don't get sued.
Oh, I worry about that every day too.
Yeah. It can kind of get sticky. Somebody actually brought that to my attention that somebody was getting sued or something ridiculous, and I'm like,
because they had talks.
No, it was some other infringement on a brand or some sort of trademark to a phrase, and without getting into details. It put the fear of God in me that this could potentially be something that Ted could sue me for. And I don't think it's necessarily true, though, because how do you brand the word talk?
Yeah.
How do you brand somebody getting on stage? You know, it just doesn't work that way. But yeah, this experience and sitting down with you has been excellent. Hopefully my ideas and things that I'm doing have come across in a coherent manner. At times I feel like they haven't, which I apologize for. I assure you there is a rhyme and a reason, and there's a lot more to the story, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Of course. No, I mean, I totally tuned out about 5 minutes in. So.
Yeah, okay. Just rambling on and on. Who is this kid?
No. You're extremely articulate, and it's absolutely been a pleasure having you on. And
cool.
I'm looking forward to seeing what U-Talk expands to. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
All right, well, that's the end of the show. You can, I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, I hope you didn't just stick through all the way because the button on your computer was broken or something. You can tweet me directly at Mr. Arash, that's MRARASH, and I'll be happy to respond to you or retweet your hate mail or whatever it is you choose to do. And when discussing the show, please use the hashtag BurnerPodcast. Not that complicated. That tune you were hearing during the break when I was doing all the shameless plugging of the events and the sales and shit, that's called Fax Me Your Email Address and Pager Number. Yes, that's the name of the song, and it's by an amazing artist by the name of Duckman. He has like 25 albums you can download for free. His website is duckmansd.bandcamp.com. Duckman, like Duckman, SD, like San Diego, .bandcamp.com. look up Duckman SD. If you're a musician in the community, send us a link to your stuff using the contact page at burnerpodcast.com, and we will take a listen. We do that from time to time. This episode is produced by Meg King. That's that Meg, producer Meg. She books the guests. If you have questions, suggestions for future guests, shoot them over to Meg King. She is on Twitter at that Meg King. At that Meg King. I like the way that sounds. Our online editor is Alpi. She writes the blogs and is near and dear to my heart and does amazing shit. Alpi, you can email her burnerpodcast@gmail.com. She will get it there. Or you can use, if you forget any of these contact things, you can use the burnerpodcast.com contact form. Just go to burnerpodcast.com, click on contact, and one of us will check it, hopefully. Unless we're dancing around a fire or some shit. The Burner Podcast theme song is America's Horse with No Name, remix produced by Joman. Check out his stuff at soundcloud.com/DJJOMAN. And some additional production work was done here by our very good friend Chris Fox. He is a close friend of the show. He recorded some of those cool intros you heard. And speaking of the cool intros, I'd like to personally thank my very good friend Joanne Berry for providing her beautiful, sexy voice to do that horrible disclaimer in the beginning. Sorry for the legalese. I honestly just thought it would be really funny. But it's good to get some coverage on there just in case somebody decides to sue us. So anyway, hope you'll join us next time. We release new episodes on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. We're going to take this show out with another track from Duckman. This one is called Baby. And until next time, love and light and all that other crap. Good night.